covert narcissists are actually the ones that I personally have had to deal with myself. I have had to deal with it in a business situation, and my husband and I have had to deal with one in our family. So we personally know the horrible situation that it is with covert narcissists. I mean, they are the ones that are like stealth or under the radar, the ones that kind of seem nice on the surface. Everybody thinks that they're so nice. And the ones that actually are the worst to deal with because it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And the ones that when you go to tell people about how they are, people go, well, I don't know, that doesn't seem so bad. Maybe it seems inadvertent. They couldn't have really meant that because they seem so nice, that kind of thing. And I don't know, I talk so much more all about their personality in my video, The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist. So you might want to check out my video on that particular topic. But anyway, going back to how they have to distract themselves because they are actually really quite miserable people underneath the surface. So they have to distract themselves from their misery. And how do they do that? Well, they do that in a number of ways. Well, one of the ways that they do that is they find their supply. And they have to constantly find new supply because once people are onto them, then they have to move on. You know, it's like vultures that are picking apart the carcass. You know, once that carcass is all picked over, then they have to move on down the road to find a new carcass to pick over. And by the way, they get bored of that carcass as well. You know, once they see a better source of supply, they want to move on. Extremely opportunistic. In fact, I remember, you know, like once you have seen the light, and you guys probably will understand exactly what I'm talking about when you have seen the light. You start to look back and then you start to go, oh, I remember that conversation taking place. And it all starts to make more sense as you start to see. You go, oh, I remember that. Now I understand what was going on. And I remember this conversation with this person that I had a business situation with. And she was referring to another situation that she had actually another business situation with. And I remember her actually saying, well, you know, I got what I needed out of that situation and it kind of took it as far as I could go. So I don't really need that person anymore. And it was like, now that I understand what that person was about, it makes perfect sense, right? But she didn't need that person anymore. She'd kind of gotten what she needed out of it, right? So finding and hanging out with their new supply is one of the things that they do to distract themselves from their misery. Ooh, shiny new object. Let me move on to this next one. So that's number one. Number two is hanging out with their flying monkeys and talking about their targets. They love to do that. So I remember actually that too. I was not the flying monkey. I was the target. And I remember knowing who the flying monkeys were. And, you know, of course, I was the one at the time that this business person had glommed onto as the source of supply, but then they glom onto that source of supply and then they want to devalue the supply, or they want to show the supply how good they are or how they can be better than you, or hang out with people that are another source of supply or whatever it is. And you know, you're supposed to somehow be jealous or somehow wonder what they're up to or something like that. And I remember thinking, am I supposed to be wondering what you're talking about? Am I supposed to be wondering what you're doing? Because I remember thinking, I know that's what you're doing. And I remember thinking, like, I don't care what you're doing. I don't care what conversations you're having. but yet I know that's what you're trying to get me to feel. And I remember thinking, I don't enjoy the game. I don't enjoy the attempt at manipulation. I just want to be out of this situation. But I knew that that was what was happening. I was aware that that was what was happening. And I remember thinking, how did I get here? How did I get sucked into the vortex of this ridiculous game? But I knew that that was what was happening. But hanging out with their flying monkeys and talking about their targets is something that they love to do to try to distract themselves, to escape their misery, for sure. They love that. All right, number 3 is preening and pretending that they are the person that they are masquerading themselves to be. They love to do that. I remember this so much, especially the 2 covert narcissists in my life. Both of the 2 covert narcissists in my life happen to be women. Definitely doesn't have to be women. Certainly a lot of covert narcissists are men. You know, they love to preen, they love to parade and be the person that they want to portray themselves to be. So they love to be in situations where they can put themselves in to be that person. So, you know, what's interesting to me is, you know, if it's not working for them to be in a certain situation, they may say, I'm sick, or, you know, I can't show up, or whatever, they'll cancel on you. But then if there is a situation where they can put themselves in to look good, like rush to the side of somebody who's sick or has cancer or something, you know, so that they can look good, then suddenly they've recovered from whatever it is that they might have had, because they definitely want to put themselves in a situation where they can portray themselves as the person that they want to portray themselves as. And if this is all sounding very familiar, give me a totally in the comments so far. So I know that this is sounding familiar to all of you. So I want you to give me a totally in the comments. All right. So, and then the last one that they do to distract themselves is just desperately holding on to maintain that facade. Desperately holding on. I mean, desperately doing whatever they need to do to keep it going. So what do they need to do to maintain that facade? What have they set up in their life to keep it going? So if it's a work situation, if it's a charity that they're running, if it's something that they're doing at a volunteer situation, something within their family, whatever it is that they've got set up to keep themselves looking good, they've got to keep that going so that they can maintain that picture of who they are. So they, whatever they need to do, they desperately keep that going to distract themselves, to escape their misery. And so those are the things that they do, that covert narcissists do to continue to escape their misery. And when they go to negotiate, by the way, it's all of this on steroids, and they keep going. But once it all starts to break down, then you become public enemy number 1, and it all starts becoming so much worse. And when that happens, you need to be on high alert. Let's talk about 3 examples of narcissists who play the victim. And really, narcissists who play the victim are a form of covert narcissists. And if you want to know more about the covert passive-aggressive narcissist, you can definitely check out my video on that topic. And this is really my least favorite in a lot of ways, because I had to deal with a covert passive-aggressive narcissist as a business partner myself. So let's talk a little bit first about narcissists, and then let's talk about a covert passive-aggressive narcissist, because I think it's really important that you understand what we're talking about before we talk about these types of narcissists who play the victim. Okay, so a narcissist is a person who has no inner sense of value. This is a person who is really the most insecure person on the planet. Of course, they have no inner sense of value. And because of that, I kind of liken it to a person who's like literally starving. They're starving for attention. They just need so much to have love and all of that. But it's almost like those receptors have closed in a way. It's like if a cell has receptors or something, it's like there's a damage that has been done and nothing can really go inside anymore. So it's not like you can love them and it'll go and penetrate. It's like they're starving, but you can't feed them. It's like this black hole in a way, but yet they're starving. They feel like they have to grab food wherever they can. And this food that they're trying to grab is what we call narcissistic supply. And they're trying to feed their ego with it all the time. Feed, 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 feed. They're going to try to feed it with external stuff. And, it's going to either come in the form of what I call quote unquote good things, which is kind of the external things that you see, like adulation, compliments, money, prestigious friends, prestigious jobs, all the things that you necessarily see. And then there's like what I call the dark underbelly of narcissistic supply, which is things that they wouldn't necessarily want people to see, which is the devaluing people, degrading people, treating people poorly. And they wouldn't necessarily want people to see that they treat people badly all the time. They know that they shouldn't necessarily do that. So usually they do that in private or whatever. We're going to get into this, the ones who play the victim here in a second. So those are, how they get their supply in a lot of ways. Okay. And then there's like the covert narcissist, the overt narcissist, all those sorts of things. Okay. And it is a bit of a spectrum. And when you're going to negotiate with them, which is what I focus on, it's a very special type of situation because it's not like a give and take the same way as when you're dealing with a normal, reasonable person. You can't have a situation the same way. You do have to deal with it in a very different way. Okay, so let's talk about these narcissists who play the victim. These are the ones who aren't the ones out there bragging and boastful, telling everybody how great they are. They are the ones that are much more tending to be what I call more passive aggressive. They seem more downtrodden. So the first one is, I'm not good enough. This is the one that's like, they're always putting themselves down. I'm not good enough to play that game, or I'm not good enough to go date that person, or I'm not good enough to go try out for the play, or to go apply for that scholarship, or whatever it is. But a lot of times, this particular narcissist is doing this because they are trying to get people to pay attention to them. And it's a way of manipulating. It's a way of manipulating people around them. And sometimes they do it to pit people against each other. And sometimes they do it to get people to feel guilty. Sometimes they do it to get people to not do things that they would normally do, or like have a life or whatever. So this is number one, the I'm not good enough narcissist. Number two is the you're the bad one. This is the super guilt trip one. So this is the one that is always on their high horse because maybe you cheated at one point or something. And so they get to lord that over you for the rest of your life. And because of that, they never have to ever look at anything that they ever did. One of the the perfect examples I've seen of this is when I was practicing law and I practiced divorce law, I would see, for example, a situation where a husband would be, unfaithful. The wife would get to tell everybody that the husband had been unfaithful and the person was the bad one. And, she got to play the victim. But what she didn't mention was that, she had sex with the husband in like 5 years before that. And, that the husband, by the time he had been unfaithful, it was because she hadn't had sex with him in several years. And, should he have probably left the marriage long before that, maybe, and there's a lot of things that go into that. But, she got to play the victim because of that. And so, she got to be on her high horse because of that. And so she got to play the victim. He was the bad one. So that's number 2. Number 3 is the poor me narcissist. This is the one that uses their sob stories as a reason to not have a life, as a reason to never do anything with themselves, right? Like they constantly have attention for themselves because it allows them to continue to get attention that way. And, there is a payoff sometimes for being the victim. And, for those of you who are out there watching this, I want you to listen to this sometimes, because as long as sometimes you allow yourself to be the victim, or that you point the finger at the other person as being the villain, then that continues to have you be the victim. And I want you to remember, I'm not saying that you're the narcissist at all, by the way, but I'm just saying, don't continue to have yourself be a victim either. But I'm saying that sometimes people who keep themselves stuck in these situations are because they are narcissistic, and it's because they know that it keeps them having attention for themselves and they use it to be manipulative. And I know that there's somebody that, my husband and I have in our lives that, uses sickness and uses sob stories as a way of manipulating people in their lives, and uses it to manipulate friends and family and that sort of thing. And it's just not okay, especially when they use it as a way of passive aggression, uses it as a way of pitting people against each other. And that's what you see sometimes with narcissists. Now, let's talk about the worst things about covert narcissists. Well, first of all, I can just tell you that I've had to deal with 2 of them. And, I think malignant narcissists are heinous and awful. I think that overt or grandiose narcissists are terrible too. If you want to know more about the main kinds of narcissists, check out my video on the main kinds of narcissists. None of them are great. All of them are awful, but coverts are just the worst because you don't see them coming, number 1. And number 2, they're so good at hiding their behavior to the rest of the world so that only their target, only their victim really sees who they are. And they do things so that they have like this plausible deniability. In other words, it's like really easy for them to just deny it and have it seem plausible what they're denying. Like, it's really, really hard to prove. And so they do these little tiny things that make it worse for you. So I know the first thing that I thought of when somebody pointed out that someone was a covert was somebody pointed out to me that one of the people that I was dealing with was a narcissist. That person did not use the word covert. That person just said that other person that you're dealing with is a narcissist and has cluster B personality disorder. And I remember thinking, oh no, that can't be right. To me, a narcissist was a person who was very, very boastful, very, very braggadocious, really out there telling everybody how great they are all the time for no reason, just to tell people, and didn't have any care or compassion for others. I did know that narcissists lacked empathy and didn't have the ability to care for others, but to me, the grandiose narcissist is the one that I had in my head. I didn't have
a picture of a covert narcissist. I had never even heard that term before. And it wasn't until I read the book, The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist, that I really started to understand the personality type. And that book is by Debbie Mirza, and I will definitely drop a link to that below. And if you want to know more about the covert passive-aggressive narcissist, check out my video on the covert passive-aggressive narcissist. That will definitely help you as well. But some of the worst things about that I think about covert narcissists is how underhanded they are. So they do things that are very passive aggressive. And that was one of the things that I really noticed about the narcissist that I was dealing with. You know, they would forget to call you back or email you, or say that, do things that, you know, they're not supposed to do, or are offensive, and you call them out on it, and they say, oh, I thought we agreed to that. And they tell the rest of the world, how, you know, the rest of the world thinks that they're so wonderful. They think that they're so nice. They come across as like the nicest, most wonderful people. Sometimes they even, you know, paint themselves as a victim, you know, and, you know, maybe they're sick all the time or something like that. And they just seem kind of like the world isn't fair for them. And so they paint themselves in these pictures. And covert narcissists also show up, by the way, as clergy, religious figures, leaders in a lot of ways. And so it's really, really hard to pinpoint them. And so in Craig Malkin's book, Rethinking Narcissism, he talks about the 3 E's, and the 3 E's that covert narcissists, or he calls them introverted narcissists, have. So the first thing that he says that you see in covert narcissists is exploitation. A lot of narcissists do this, but coverts especially, they will exploit situations and people to use them so that they get more attention, so that they feel more special. And that is definitely what happened with me. And it's just something that they use to try to get narcissistic supply. They attach themselves to people so that they can suck supply out of them and almost like try to become that person. And so one of the things I want you to make sure that you understand is that narcissists don't attach themselves to you because you have so little value, even though that's what they want you to think. They attach themselves to you because you have so much value, because they wouldn't be interested in you if you couldn't give them narcissistic supply. So exploitation is one of the things that you will definitely see, and it's one of the worst things about covert narcissists. And if you think that this behavior is so disgusting, give me a yuck in the comments. The second thing that you will see, the second E that Craig Malkin talks about in his book, Rethinking Narcissism, is entitlement. They feel very entitled, even to things that don't have anything to do with them, even to, they want to take credit for things that they didn't do. They want to have attention for things that they didn't accomplish, but they feel entitled. They should sit in the seat of the best seat in the house, whatever that looks like, because they need that in order to feel special. And so entitlement is that second thing that you often see in covert narcissists. And the third thing that he talks about is empathy impairment, which, again, you see with all narcissists. What I have seen with covert narcissists is they know what they need to say in the moment that they need to say it. And one of the things that I've noticed about covert narcissists is that when somebody is ill or in the hospital or something like that, they are actually the first ones to show up. It's unlike the other narcissists, but coverts will oftentimes be the first ones to show up, be at the bedside, sending gifts weekly or doing whatever they need to, because they recognize that it's an opportunity to look good, to recognize that it's an opportunity for everybody to pay attention to the fact that, look at how wonderful this person was. They sat at the bedside the entire time. And, but they'll only be doing that if they think there's going to be a vast audience, that the right people will see it. It's not just because they actually care. The worst thing about covert narcissists is they know how they are supposed to behave, and they will do it if they need to. But it's very strategic, very manipulative, and if nobody's watching, they don't care at all. And it becomes very, very clear when they don't have an audience, because then, suddenly, where are the phone calls? Where are they not showing up? Because they have this empathy impairment.
You're dealing with a covert narcissist. They use this secret weapon against you to make you think that you're crazy. Well, covert narcissists are incredibly convincing. They're incredibly convincing. I think they're the most dangerous type of narcissist. Okay. I think they're the most dangerous because they are so convincing. They're the ones out there looking like the most normal. Other types of narcissists, grandiose narcissists, are out there telling everybody how amazing they are, how great they are, how wonderful they are. They're the ones out there that go in restaurants or go into a room and say, I did this and I did that, and look at my accomplishments and look how amazing I am. Covert narcissists don't do that. Covert narcissists say, oh, I don't want attention. I hate attention, even though they do want attention, even though they do want the world to think that they're wonderful and all of that. And so they do have this deep need, wanting, the world to think that they're amazing. And the reason why they are incredibly convincing in a lot of ways is that they also believe their own made up reality of themselves. They've also almost kind of convinced themselves that they are honest and trustworthy and loyal and considerate. And they genuinely believe a lot of that, even as they're gaslighting people and as they're taking advantage of people and as they're doing these things, victimizing people. And that's part of the reason why they're so insidious and very, very stealth. And they present very well. And they put themselves in positions where they are often clergy or doctors or lawyers, or they're the first ones to show up when somebody is sick, or the first ones to take care, but only if it's opportunistic, only if there's going to be an audience, only if it's the right type of audience. Only if the scenario presents itself to be the right one. They have to appear in the right way. And they're masters at orchestrating situations, a lot of times, where they can pit people against each other, where they can dig deep wells where it looks like they are the good person and the other person is bad, or they set themselves up so that they're calm and the other person is crazy. So they, here they are, the rational one, and the other person is out of control, sobbing or screaming. And they're just, I don't know what happened there, officer, while the onlookers are, oh my goodness, I look at that, so, they can be the ones who are, I tried for years to get the person help, or I tried for years to do all that I could. And they come off as the likable one. They come off as the calm one. They come off as the charming one in marriage counseling, or, to the therapists as the much more rational and calm one. And they can get everyone to believe that that's what's going on. They're masters at smear campaigns and at planting seeds, starting the planting of seeds. Oh, I'm so concerned about, how much they had to drink that night. I just, I'm just really concerned about that situation. I just want to make sure that everybody's okay. Oh, my heart. It's like that. And just lining up the flying monkeys and just starting to groom. And so those are the kinds of things that they'll do. And they start to weave. They start to weave and lead people down these paths. And people are just unaware of what they're doing. They're just unaware of what's happening because they're so good at doing these things and just remaining calm. And so their real secret weapon, and that's what I'm leading to here, is that they are masters, absolute masters of plausible deniability. And what I mean by that is sabotaging and undermining in very, very subtle, insidious ways, but then being able to just look very, very innocent and saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I have no idea. And, so for example, something could be like, I only said something about, I knew somebody said something about their child's birthday or something, and realizing that it was before a date that was something that was going to be inflammatory to something else. And then they putting dates together that are, is going to upset something to somebody else. And then the other person realizes that that's upsetting to this other person. And then they know that it's going to be upsetting to this other person. But then they go, oh, I didn't realize that I said that date and that was going to be upsetting to you. And then the other person, goes, oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize, and they just play it off as if they didn't realize that date was going to be upsetting. I had no idea. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I didn't realize, that sort of thing. They'll make a dish and give it to the other person, and the dish has something in it that the person is allergic to, like cashews. And then the other person gets an allergic reaction from it. And then they say, I didn't realize it had cashews in it. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, that's terrible. Oh, I didn't realize that. They did realize that. But, they play it off like they didn't know. Plausible deniability. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that when I was going to do something on your computer, that was going to delete that off of your computer and off your calendar. So I'm so stupid. That sort of thing. And they do know that when they were going to do that it was going to delete it off your calendar. Plausible deniability, undermining you, but acting like I didn't know that was going to happen, to avoid taking responsibility, but everybody else, when you tell that story, everybody else goes, well, I'm sure that was inadvertent because they're so nice, because they're such a good person. I'm sure that couldn't have been on purpose. Oh, you're making too much of it. That sort of thing. When you try to tell other people, I think you're just making too much. And then when they're telling other people, they go, I was just trying to be helpful. I was just trying to be nice. Gosh, do they really think that I would try to make them sick on purpose? That's just so crazy, that sort of thing. And sometimes I do believe they really believe their stuff. Like they really think that I would be that horrible of a person, and they start to even believe their own lies sometimes. It actually is like that crazy making. And so I believe that the worst secret weapon that they have is this plausible deniability, where they actually start to make you think that you're absolutely crazy, and the world cannot see it. The world cannot see it at all. And you are just, over time, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. And it's like not so bad that you just feel like you can go to the world and go, look, this person's beating me, or this person's cheating on me, or this person is that bad. It's these little tiny things over the years that just add up, where you're just sucks at your soul over time, and it drains the life out of you over time. And so that's why I think it's just so insidious and so horrible. And they have this way also of sort of this double language and this double, like saying things, these like kind of things that almost look like compliments, but they're not actually compliments. And it's very, very insidious the way covert narcissists work on you and work on your brain. And they're extremely, extremely toxic and extremely, extremely poisonous. They've got this rage that's just right there. And it's just almost ready to come flying out. And so the hidden habits of a covert narcissist are that, number one, their public persona is very different than their private persona. They look very different on the surface than who they actually are. It's very shocking when you start to realize, because you just start to have this sense, but you kind of feel like you're going crazy when you start to suspect things, because everybody else thinks that they're wonderful, and they still seem so wonderful when you're dealing with them, but things aren't adding up. It's just sort of like they're passive aggressive. They agree to do things. Absolutely. Oh yeah, of course I'll do that for you. And then they don't. And you're asking them about it again. Oh, of course I'll get to that. Yes. And then they don't. You're so like, what's going on, and money issues, they didn't put the money in the right place. And why didn't they? Or they say they're going to get something from the store and then they don't. And, and you would just wonder, like, what is going on, like, oh, could you get the tickets? And I'll make sure to pay you back. And then they don't. Or they say they're going to call when they're supposed to, but then they don't. And oh yeah, I just, I didn't get to that. But they still seem like they're so nice. So you just think like, maybe it's inadvertent, or maybe I'm reading too much into this, or it's very, very subtle. But then it just keeps happening, and things are not the way they seem. But their public persona is very, very different, because they're just very passive aggressive. So that's number one. Number two is they express rage and then they deny their anger. It's just like this surface thing that's happening. And then, oh, I'm not angry. I mean, it's just like they seem like they're angry, but then I'm not angry. And so you just constantly think like you're the one that's going crazy all the time, because it's just right underneath the surface, this constant sort of competition and smiling, but it's just this plausible deniability is happening all the time, where everything they say or everything they do doesn't really quite come back to them, you know? So the things that they will say and the things that they will do don't quite come back to them. You know, they might pit people against each other, or they might say things such as, you know, oh, I can see that you've lost weight, but oh, too bad about the stretch marks. Or they withhold information. Oh, I meant to tell you that. Oh, it just slipped my mind. Little things like that. But when you go to tell somebody about it, they go, well, I'm sure that it was inadvertent, you know, but it just stacks up, stacks up, stacks up. That sort of thing. Number 3 is they'll express criticism and make it sound like concern. You know, Tim, he was drinking a lot last night, and I'm so worried. I'm so worried about him. I'm so concerned about his drinking. You know, they might say it in a context of a custody situation where it's long before the divorce has even started. But then, you know, 6 months later, when the divorce actually happens, then they can say, oh, I did mention to you about the drinking. And, you know, I'm just concerned. I'm really just concerned for the children, you know. I'm sure that you'll testify on our behalf because, you know, for the children, you know, because Tim is an alcoholic. You know, and Tim probably isn't an alcoholic. Tim probably just drinks like a normal person, but they say things in these ways that make it sound like they're just concerned, you know, so they express criticism, but they make it sound like concern. You know, those are the kinds of things that they'll do. If you've seen this before, put so true in the comments. And I would love to know the kinds of things that you guys have seen too. What kinds of hidden habits you guys have seen. The next thing that they will do is they will often play the victim when they're attacked. If you will say anything at all to them, like, how come the money is missing from this particular account? Or why haven't you done what you said you're going to do yet, or something like that, then all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're questioning me. Or my sister died and I can't believe that you would question my integrity, or why would you bring that up now? And, you know, they play the victim, they start crying or something. They totally shift it so that they're the victim when they're attacked. All of that, like they're always the victim. Covert narcissists are excellent at being the victim and getting everybody else to think that they're the victim. I mean, that is the one thing about covert narcissists that they're very, very good at, and that's being the victim. And then number 5, of course, because they are narcissists, they have a lack of empathy because narcissists are narcissists. So, of course, they don't have empathy, just like all narcissists don't. And they use their guilt and shame to control others. The coverts are usually always playing the victim, so they try to make other people feel guilty. You know, I can't believe you would do this to me. You know, it must be nice for you to have what you have. I never had it like that. I never got anybody to do things, you know, or, oh, that's really great for you. Oh, you know, congratulations, you know, that you get to do that. I'll just sit over here. You know, nobody ever appreciates me. Nobody ever, you know, acknowledges all the things that I do for everybody, you know, and, you know, so they do things like that. That's the kinds of things that a covert narcissist will say. So they'll do things for people, but then they expect like a lot in return. And they have a lack of empathy for others and for what others are doing for them. So those are the kinds of hidden habits that you guys might see in covert narcissists. Really, really difficult to be in a relationship with a covert narcissist. They will drive you into the ground. They will suck the life out of you. They will suck your soul dry. I have been there. I have so been there. And it is absolutely painful, ruthless, and you will be up at night and feeling so drained. There's no doubt about it. All right, so let's talk about the coverts. They're the ones that seem so nice to the rest of the world. I think they're the most dangerous ones because it's like these little teeny things. They're really under the radar that everybody else thinks they are wonderful. They're very good at having this plausible deniability. They're very good at saying things and doing things in a way that can be shifted or taken in a way that, that's not what I meant. I mean, it's almost extremely hard to describe to other people. I mean, even recently, I was at an event. I was the keynote speaker for the event, and somebody was asking me about, you had to deal with a covert narcissist. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I said, yeah. And I said, I had to deal with one in business. Oh, really? What were some of the things that you had to deal with? And I said, I really have a hard time describing it because when I have to describe it, it never sounds all that bad because it's the things that they do are small and they mess with your mind, and it's over time, and it's very abusive over time, and it's death by a thousand cuts, and it's psychological. So I'm going to do these things, and I want you guys to be writing things in the comments if you've seen these things. I really want to know. Okay. So here are a few. It's only because I care about you so much that I say this insert very underhanded put down statement about you. So here's an example. Only because I care about you so much that I'm concerned about how much weight you're putting on, or how much you're drinking, or how much alcohol you're consuming, or something like that, or how much of a slut you're going to look like with that red lipstick on, something like that. It's psychological a lot of times. Many times they say the statement to a third party, and sometimes they do this in advance of the discard to start seed planting, so that when the discard actually happens, they've planted the seed so that they can show that third party that they were right. I'm so concerned about Susie. She's really drinking too much. She really had a lot to drink last night. I'm so concerned about her, so that when the discard happens and the custody battle happens, Susie's an alcoholic. You see how that happens, but it's all under the guise of concern. And that's how the coverts come across through their very deep sense of care and concern. The other thing that they'll do, the other thing that they say is they'll say something that is very innocuous that ends up being a massive firestorm. I was in the presence of a covert narcissist who was with her stepdaughter. And she happened to say something about how she was with the husband, the father of the child. The stepdaughter was in her 20s, and she said, "Oh, I've been with your dad for 20 years," whatever it was. And the stepchild got very, very upset because she realized that that meant that she had been with the father before the mother and father had broken up, and was crying and upset. And the covert narcissist was, "Oh, that was just a mistake. It wasn't my intention. I just said the years wrong. It wasn't my intention to upset her. Obviously, I just said the years wrong. I meant these years. Clearly, it wasn't my intention to upset her. I meant this number of years, obviously." And she obviously knew the number of years, but she had that plausible deniability. It wasn't my intention to. So that's another thing that they say. It wasn't my intention to. They know exactly what they're doing, but they say things like that. And that's why they're so difficult to pin down, because many times they seem so nice and so kind. And these are the people that are out there, that they're humanitarians, they're doing things for the world. They're oftentimes clergy or doctors, and people think, well, obviously it must have been a mistake. It was inadvertent. But you know that it's not. You know that it was absolutely not a mistake. Another thing that they do is they'll say, "Oh, I must have misunderstood. I said this wrongly, or I must have misunderstood." It's all gaslighting. It's meant to make you crazy, but it's not. Lots and lots of passive aggressive behavior. It's all very, very passive aggressive. Or they might say something like, "Oh, it must be so nice. It must be so nice to have it like this," something like that. And I do have much more on this in my video called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, which you are certainly welcome to check out, because I had to deal with two of these in my life, one of which I've been able to cut out completely, thank God. The other one is a family member, so we've put up very, very steel boundaries as much as we can. The other thing that they do is they'll do passive aggressive things like, "It's fine, it's fine, it's okay," something like that. Another thing that they'll do is they'll make a comment and then they'll say, "Oh, I was just joking," or they'll add "ha" to the end of the statement, and you know that they weren't necessarily joking. By the way, if you have seen any of these things so far, give me an amen in the comments, or I would love to know what some of the examples are that you guys have seen too. I'm sure you guys have seen many of your own as well. Another one that I've seen personally is they're extremely jealous. So if something good happens to you, they just can barely bring themselves to be happy for you. So they might say, "Well, congratulations. So good for you." And then when you say, "Aren't you happy for me?" they'll say, "Yeah, I said congratulations." And you say, "Well, you don't seem very happy." And you say, "Your tone didn't seem very happy." And then they act like you're the one who's crazy. You're reading things into it. You are reading tone. They turn it and shift it onto you, like you're the one who's absolutely insane. I said I was really happy for you. I couldn't have said it even better. I warmly congratulated you. So then you just don't even bother. And then you start, maybe you are crazy. Maybe you start to feel guilty. There's all of that as well. But deep down inside that they really didn't seem all that happy for you, or maybe they do seem jealous, something like that. The other thing that they are very, very good at is they're extremely skillful at saying kind of two things at once, at being able to kind of give a compliment and a put down all at once. It's kind of crazy how good they are at sort of saying something like, your brand new home is so beautiful. Oh, it's too bad it's on the water where you're going to have so many issues with mosquitoes. Or, wow, you've lost so much weight. It's too bad you're going to have so much issue with sagging skin, though, right? What a bummer about that. Something like that. Or coded language. It's so great about your promotion, but what a bummer about the amount of driving you're going to have to do, huh? I mean, I don't know. They're very, very good. I'm not even as good at even coming up with the examples as they are at it, because they're so good at being able to kind of give you a compliment and also a put down at the same time, and having that plausible deniability and saying things in a way that their target knows was a put down at the same time. They'll say something, where they can actually say something to you and, oh, what was the name of that again? And that they know was, why wouldn't you remember that, kind of a thing, which was meant to be a put down to you. Or they'll bring a gift to you and that was meant to be a message to you and to the rest of the world. Oh, that was nice. They brought a gift. And to you, that's a message. Those are the kinds of things that covert narcissists do and say. They are the worst. As many of you know, they're the ones that I disdain and detest the most in a lot of ways. But it also means that there are definitely ways that you can handle them. I've given you lots and lots of ways that you can actually work with them in a very powerful way as far as negotiating with them as well. Definitely handle them. You can definitely negotiate with them in a powerful way. Are you dealing with a covert narcissist? Covert narcissists are the absolute worst. I have dealt with them myself in my personal life, and that is why I am on this mission, on this crusade, to help you guys break free from them too, because I know they get stuck in your head. They literally know how to get stuck in the recesses of your head. You become obsessed. Seriously, like you wake up in the middle of the night, you're thinking about it. You wake up in the morning, you're thinking about it. You're brushing your teeth, you're thinking about it. You seriously cannot get away from these. It's seriously like death by 1,000 cuts, because they are so subtle. I've recently heard this term micro manipulation, and I love this term because this is what they do. I mean, it is so subtle that when you go to try to tell somebody about it, people think, well, it doesn't sound that bad. And there's this term called plausible deniability, and that is what they do. I mean, it's so subtle that it's really, really hard to describe what it is that they're doing. It just doesn't seem that bad, because these micro manipulations are so tiny. They're literally messing with your mind a little at a time. There's this old term, Chinese water torture, which, I kind of don't love that term because I'm half Chinese and, it's not the greatest, but it's that little like drip, drip, drip on your forehead where it's just a little at a time. It's the whole death by 1,000 cuts thing. And so this is how covert narcissists literally make you crazy and drive you absolutely insane. So these micro manipulations are what they do to absolutely drive you crazy. It is a subtle form of emotional abuse that they use in their closest relationships to gain a sense of control, and especially regain a sense of control if they think they're losing it. So one of the things that they will do, for example, is, they'll send like a DM. It has like this shock value, like, oh, I had a biopsy today and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And then they'll like unsend it. Oh, that wasn't meant for you. Something like that. And you'll be like, what was that? And, this massive drama bomb. And you'll go, what was that? And then they'll say, oh, sorry, that wasn't meant for you. That was for somebody else. It was so that you will go, what was that? What was that? Play on your sympathy, so that you'll come back and want to know what that was, and get, to get your attention. And then they'll be super secretive about it. Oh, that wasn't meant for you. Sorry. I know you don't care anymore, to try to reawaken your empathy, to see if you still care, try to get you to worry, something to that effect. So that may be one of the things that they might do. Another thing that they might do is try to get you to participate in activities that they know that you don't necessarily enjoy. This is if you're still in a relationship with them. So they will do that, but they'll make you do that, but they know that you will go along and you won't say anything, because they know that you're the type of person that will go along to get along. And they might say, oh, it's just for a minute and it won't take that long and you'll be fine with it. And then after a while, it ends up being like your whole day or something like that. And an hour turns into 3 hours, and it turns into the whole day or something. And you just end up being, annoyed or whatever. But you just ended up kind of getting roped into the whole thing. And what can you really end up doing about it? But they end up just sort of roping you into that whole thing. So then it makes them sort of feel like, well, they got their way. But what can you really do? Well, they say, oh, it wasn't supposed to be that or whatever. And you end up being the bad person if you say anything about it. So that's another example. Another example would be where they say something to you or do something for you that is supposed to be nice for you that ends up not being so nice. One of the things that somebody close to me, for example, was a family member that my husband and I had in our family, and they would do something nice for you. And then as they're doing something nice for you, they would be saying something like, oh, you're going to get so spoiled because I'm doing this nice thing for you. And so you kind of get the sense like there's like these strings attached to them doing something nice for you, so there's like this sort of manipulation around it, these strings attached to it. Or they might give like a backhanded compliment, like, you're losing so much weight. I mean, you have a ways to go, but you really look so much better than you used to, something like that. Another thing that they might do is sort of badmouth people around you. Like, your friends are so great, but don't really love this person. Why do you hang around people that are so not worthy of you? Something like that. You really could hang around better people. Make it seem like your friends aren't the greatest or something like that. And it's talking negatively about people in your life all the time and trying to just isolate you from your friends, that sort of thing. Another thing that they will do is kind of subtly never accept your opinions on something. They'll always sort of put you down. Well, that sounds like a good idea, but why would we do that? Or how about if we do it this way instead? And you just sort of start to realize that anytime you have given your idea or your opinion on something, they never take your idea or opinion on something. They just always sort of put it down, or they'll always sort of discount it. And you're always realizing that they always go with their idea or their opinion. And it's just always these little kinds of things. It's a micro manipulation, just these little tiny things. They're just tiny things. Like if you cleaned a room, for example, they say, yeah, you did a good job with it. But as they're kind of going behind you and continuing to fix it up or to continuing to clean it, to let you know you didn't really quite do a great job, that sort of thing. So those are the kinds of things that you see. I mean, if you want to know more about covert narcissism in relationships, I have a whole video on that. After a while, it just erodes away at your self-esteem, at who you are, and you just lose the sense of yourself.
Now, if you are dealing with a covert narcissist or any kind of narcissist, whether they're overt or grandiose or malignant or covert is what we're going to be talking about today, or a combination of any of the kinds of narcissists, then you're dealing with a hellish personality, a heinous personality. But there are some things about covert narcissists that can make them even more insidious than the other types of narcissists. And for those of you who have watched my other videos, which you will want to check out on covert narcissism in relationships and the covert passive aggressive narcissist, and I'll drop links to those below, you know that I have a personal experience with dealing with covert narcissists. Not as husbands, but as people who were close to me, who I became the target of these heinous creatures. So this is the kind of narcissist that I personally disdain the most. So in some ways, this is like my PSA, my public service announcement to warn you against these personality type, or this personality type, and what to look for in this personality type. So one of the things that you should know about covert narcissists is that they are 100% narcissists. So they have what Dr. Craig Malkin calls the triple E, which is that they exploit, they feel entitled, and they lack empathy. So they still are all 100% narcissists, like all narcissists are. And the other little kind of dangerous thing about covert narcissists is that they can sometimes be grandiose narcissists that act covert, which is kind of confusing too. You know, sometimes these different types of narcissists actually vacillate back and forth between the various signs of the types of narcissists they are. But what I'm going to be talking about today is actually more of your pure covert narcissist, which is the kind that I've actually had to deal with, and why I think that they're so dangerous. Because, you know, if I could be fooled, then anybody can be fooled. And I really just had to literally work these people out of my life in the last year. So, and it was not easy, and they still try to pop back up and pop back in, because that's what narcissists do. They never really let go. They never really move on completely. You know, sometimes it can be years before they pop back up again, but that you can kind of minimize it and protect yourself in a lot of ways. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I want you to know the signs of abuse, okay? So the thing about covert narcissists is that they don't look on the surface like regular narcissists. Regular narcissists, what I call the garden variety narcissist, is more of your grandiose varietal, the kind that goes around telling everybody how great they are all the time. Covert narcissists don't do that. And that's one of the things that I think is so dangerous about them. is that on the surface, they appear very nice. They appear like good people. Lots of people love them. They can be politicians. They can be clergy. They can be lawyers, doctors. They're often in positions of respect because, of course, they're narcissists. They feed on that respect. Remember that the narcissist actually has no inner sense of internal value. They get all of their sense of value from the external. They need endless amounts of what we call supply, which is anything that feeds their ego, anything that feeds their external value or their feeling of external value. So supply can be in the form of money, compliments, prestige, anything that they think is going to give them more value. So here's the problem with a covert narcissist, and one of the things that is so dangerous about them is you're not going to hear them say, I'm the greatest, look at my ratings, look how fantastic I am, I'm so smart, I'm the number one this, I'm the number one that, without anything to back it up. They just go around saying all of those things because they feed on that. They need to have it. Okay. So what a covert narcissist is more likely to do is put themselves in positions where they're going to get all of that, but they're not actually going to have to say it, overtly. And so we're told that, narcissists are brash, braggadocious, loud, assertive. Well, the thing is that covert narcissists don't come in that format. They're usually much nicer. They start off by, giving you lots of things. That their version of love bombing is often being the perfect person for you. And, they can put you in positions that you want to be in, or give you speaking engagements that you think that you want, or introduce you to the person that you want to be introduced to, or they're the perfect cook or the perfect mother, or whatever it is that you want. This person just seems so nice and so wonderful. And yes, malignant narcissists can do that too, but the difference with covert narcissists is that they don't come off that way, where they're loud and braggadocious and flashy. They come off as really nice, sometimes even quiet, sometimes passive, sometimes demure. So that's one of the things that I think is super dangerous about covert narcissists. One of the other things that I think is really dangerous about covert narcissists is that they come off looking very successful, often on the surface. And, grandiose and malignant narcissists can do this too, but grandiose narcissists come off as super ambitious, super successful, whereas the covert narcissist is often, they make it look like they've had that sort of success, but if you look just beneath the surface, they haven't actually gotten that success. And so they have a lot of bitterness and resentment about the fact that, everybody else has more success than they do. And, that their failures are other people's faults because, something happened with their business, or this person sabotaged them in some way, or maybe they were just getting going and they had to close their business, or they had to move, or something happened. And so they have all of these sort of failed ambitions and feeling of emptiness. And they often feel, have a tremendous sense of depression and emptiness. And sometimes they'll even tell you that they have bouts of depression, but they don't tell you it's because of their failures in business. They'll tell you it's, just that they have these afflictions. Because one of the other things about covert narcissists is, they often are very good at playing the victim. All narcissists do that, but the way covert narcissists do it is that they're kind of sad, and people aren't treating them well, and they just didn't get a good lot in life, and um, the world is unfair to them, and so they end up feeling depressed and empty, and they often have sicknesses, um, so that they can get sympathy from people around them, garner lots of pity from people. Oh, so and so's always getting a bad deal. There's a lot of payoff sometimes for being a victim, and a covert narcissist thrives on that payoff from being the victim. So the other thing about covert narcissists that I think is super dangerous is that they're super passive aggressive. And this is the one thing that really was like very confusing for me, and the two passive aggressive narcissists that I had to deal with, the covert ones, is that they would do these little things that on the surface would seem so nice. Oh, here, I did this for you. And but while they're doing this thing for you, they're crossing a boundary. Or they don't do something that they say they're going to do. And then when you ask them about it, it's, oh, I forgot, or, oh, I misunderstood you, or, oh, we had a conversation about that, remember? And we decided to do this. And it's absolutely not something that we decided to do, but it's them trying to make an excuse for behavior that they know has been hurtful to you. And so they try to get you to say that, basically you went along with that. And when you try, and it's little things, it's that little drip, drip, drip on your forehead, little things. In Debbie Mirza's book, The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, she gives an example of a husband who would go into Starbucks to get coffee, and the wife would stay in the car, and the husband would say, what do you want, anything? And she'd say, yeah, I'll have, a vanilla latte or whatever. And he'd get back in the car and start to drive away, and she'd say, what happened to my latte? And he'd say, oh, I forgot to get it for you. But then he wouldn't go back into the place to get it. So, and it was like a little thing that if you tell somebody, oh, I didn't get the latte that I wanted, then you come off sounding petty. And you start to think, well, do I blow up a whole marriage over that? I mean, that seems so ridiculous. But what they're really trying to do is send you this message that they think so little of you, or that you're not worthy in some way, because that's how narcissists get supply. They get supply by building themselves up and cutting you down. And so they do these little tiny things that in the surface, if you tell somebody about it, it just doesn't seem like that big of a deal. They're very, very passive aggressive, and it can leave you feeling confused and after a while abused, and actually traumatized because of the way they act. And if this is sounding really familiar to you, give me a totally in the comments. Is that they're 100% narcissists, but they are really, really good at being manipulative, very good at hiding their manipulation, very good at disguising it as something else, as disguising it as that, I just, did this little thing for you. And that the hair on the back of your neck is standing up, like, that's not something nice. One of the things that I've heard during this, I'm taping this while we're still in this global pandemic, is, that the covert narcissist in people's lives are leaving food by the door. And that that's like a message of, I know where you live, or I still have control over you, or I know what you want. But the rest of the world is like, oh, the person left you a care package. How is that bad? Why is that? Well, we all know that the person is so nice. We all know that the person is such a good person. So what's your problem? And so while they're lining up their flying monkeys and they're telling everybody, how wonderful they are or how wronged they've been by you, because, oftentimes you actually look like the stronger person because they've put themselves in this light of being the nice, caring, kind person. So you obviously must be the one that is wronging them in some way. And you almost feel paralyzed to, like, how do you even um, right that wrong of what people are thinking about you? And the way I've just come to deal with it is, number one, I have major boundaries. I do not look at what these other people are doing. I don't look at their social media. I've blocked them on my social media so that they can't see what I'm doing and, continue to, have access to what I'm doing. I don't want them to think that I'm interested in what they're doing at all, because I'm not. I just want to look forward, not back. I don't want their energy in my space. I don't want to even be thinking about them. When I go to think, when one of them pops into my mind, I pivot immediately, because the way I look at it is, if I'm thinking about them, then I am not in creation mode. I'm not helping people. I'm not doing things like making these videos and helping you guys so that you can look forward also and concentrate on your now and the rest of your life and creating an incredible future. And so I just learned how to pivot and create major boundaries, because I don't want these people in my space, and you shouldn't have them in there either. So if you have to continue to co-parent with them, or you have to continue to live with them in some way, then, figure out a way to protect yourself so that when they do these things, you're no longer going to be sucked into it. And certainly do not let them see you be upset by their behavior, because then they know that they have you. Then they know that they still have this little modicum of control over you. So here comes more, here comes more. So, the less you can interact, the more you can show that you aren't interested and you direct your energies elsewhere, then that vibrational energy of connection that you still have with that person will eventually peter off and hopefully eventually die. So if you are dealing with a covert passive aggressive narcissist in your life, they can be the most dangerous kind of narcissist, because they are the most sneaky, the most insidious, the most stealth, and in some ways the most toxic, because of how good they are about hiding their narcissism and being under the radar. And so if that is you, I'm sending you blessings. I'm sending you light. From one survivor, thriver, to another, you can do this. Just follow the light, get them the hell out of your life, and look at your now.
Yeah, the reason I am on this mission is because I have had to deal with covert narcissists, the subject of today's video. I've had to deal with them in a business setting, one of them in a business setting and one in my extended family. I had never even heard the term covert narcissist before until somebody pointed it out to me. And I remember when we were having this conversation, the person who pointed it out to us pointed it out to my husband and me first, and they were like, oh, that person, that family member that you're dealing with is a covert narcissist. And I remember I was like, covert narcissist, I never even heard that term before, but I remember thinking, oh, I don't think she's a narcissist. I mean, a narcissist to me was like boastful, bragging, super egotistical, usually a male. Like, to me, it was always a male. I mean, it had never occurred to me, number one, that a narcissist could be a female. And by the way, the person who was calling this person a narcissist happened to be a psychologist. I was like, I don't think she's a narcissist. Pretty sure she's just like really insecure. And he was like, okay, you know what? let it be a hypothesis. And if I'm wrong, I guess you'll know it. And if I'm right, you'll know it too. The facts and circumstances will bear it out. And of course, he was 100% right. But as time went on and I started to read and learn much more about it, I started to really figure it out. And so, there's so much that goes into a covert narcissist. But, my hypothesis is that I think women do tend to be more the covert kind because women want to be more under the radar. They tend to want to be, they want to look nice. They want to look kind. I mean, but I don't know. I think that there are a lot of male covert narcissists too. They're the ones that nobody suspects. Like the world thinks that they're so fantastic. They're so charismatic. The world thinks they're wonderful. So anyway, here are some strange behaviors of covert narcissists. I mean, number one is that they're super passive aggressive. Their words do not match their actions. So they're like super kind and absolutely, I will do that for you. Absolutely. I will get right back to you on that. And then you don't hear from them. Or, I definitely want to make sure that you were taken care of. And then they don't. And so you're left like so confused all the time. And do I force them on that? Do I ask them about that? And does this make me a bad person because they're so nice? And then here you are, the one like, am I being passive aggressive? Am I being the one that's a problem? It seems very strange because they seem so nice. So it's kind of a strange behavior because they seem so nice, but it's actually not strange if you get to know who they are as a covert narcissist. So that's number one. Number two is they value the opinions of strangers over family. I mean, and this is something that my husband and I have seen it with the covert narcissist that we've had to deal with in our family situation. This particular person who shall not be named definitely values the opinions of strangers over family. It can be painful unless you realize and just accept that that's who they are, that they are narcissists. And that's what narcissists do. They are seeking that external praise. They're seeking that narcissistic supply. And that's the very strange thing about narcissists. They kind of take for granted the opinions or the supply that they're getting within their inner circle. They don't really care about the supply that they already have. That's just sort of a given. They want the supply that they're getting externally. For some reason, that means more to them than the supply or the validation that they can get from the people who actually love them, from the people who actually care about them or actually value them. They prefer to get it from other people that they don't even know. But that's how it is. It doesn't really make any sense, but that is very strange. And so that's number two. Number three, and I will never really get over number three, to be honest with you. Both of the covert narcissists that I had to deal with did this with me, and I found it very odd, very weird, very super creepy. And that is that they stare at you. I actually did a whole video on this just because I really couldn't stand it. My whole video was called Why the Narcissist is Always Watching You. Both of the narcissists I had to deal with, I would find would be staring at me, watching me. They stalk your social media. They check out what you're doing. I would find that they would copy me, watch what I was wearing, copy that. And some people would be who don't understand narcissism. They'd be like, oh, but that's so flattering. That's so, that's so nice that they would want to be like you or something. But no, those of you who understand narcissism, that it's not flattering. It's like the creepy kind. Actually, recently I had dinner with another couple who happened to let me know that one of the narcissists that I had to deal with that I've completely cut out of my life, not the family member one, but the other one, let me know that there was like some like buddy who was in touch with somebody else that, you know, sort of like this fringe sort of in touch, that like there's that like narcissist that's still like trying to poke their head through to try to get through the boundaries that I've created. I mean, very sad, but you know, from my own growth perspective, I was like, you know what, I don't really feel any emotion about it. So it was actually good. It was like a little test for me, because when I heard about it, I was like, that is so pathetic. I actually found myself feeling like nothing. So I was glad about that. So that's number 3. Number 4 is they're super weird about gift giving. You know, they kind of like don't really want to give gifts. They like, oh, here you go. And there's like ties against it. They don't really like to give gifts. I do have a video on that too, by the way, if you want to check it out. But you know, narcissists, there's always like strings. They don't like to give gifts, really. There's always something involved with the gifts. So that's number 4. Number 5 is they're chameleons, you know, like they're kind of one way with one group and one way with another group and one way with this person and another way with another person, because, you know, they, whatever color they are with this person, they might be a different color with a different person, because, you know, they don't have a sense of self, right? Because they're a narcissist. So that's number 5. Number 6. This is actually another little sore spot for me, because this was something I had to deal with in my business setting kind of situation. Anyway, they definitely take credit for your ideas. Yep, been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Did not like that, but they do that. They definitely like to take credit for your ideas because they don't have any ideas of their own. Yes, because, you know, they are energy vampires. That's part of what they do. They suck the energy out of you. And if you know this to be true, give me an energy vampires in the comments below. Come on, say it with me. Energy vampires. Yes, they are. All right. And number 7, this is another little catchy little tune that the coverts like to play. This is another little strange behavior of theirs, which is they act like they're strong. I'm so strong. I'm so good. But then they also like to play the victim. Very strange, very weird. They want to play like they're strong, they're so good, but then they also, oh, they played me. I can't believe they did that to me. I'm so weak. The whole passive aggressive thing, part of the whole covert thing. I'm so nice, but I'm also, you know, like again, knives under me, you know, so warm over here, but there's ice in my blood. Yes, indeed. So anyway, those are the 7 top strange behaviors of covert narcissists. The one that I personally detest the most because I've had to deal with them.
Now, let's talk about this covert, passive aggressive narcissist. I never even heard of such a thing until I actually became the, I would say, victim, target, survivor. I prefer survivor, actually, but you know, initially you are their target and then you kind of become their victim. And then hopefully you can escape and become a survivor and live to talk about it. And, you know, for me, having been a seasoned attorney, I'm a very successful attorney. I've been recognized by any, you know, valid, credible source that recognizes accomplishments of attorneys. I've been a divorce attorney for 20 years or more, and you know, very what I would say confident, tough. So I wouldn't have expected to have become the target, victim, survivor of a covert narcissist, but I actually have 2
two of them that I had to get rid of fairly recently in my life. And so while I have programs on how to negotiate with a narcissist, I've had to make sure that I incorporate in there how to deal with a covert passive aggressive narcissist, because these are the most stealth ones. These are the most toxic in a lot of ways because they don't look like narcissists. So there's really three types of narcissists. The first one would be your grandiose narcissist. That's your run-of-the-mill narcissist, the one that we're used to seeing, the kind that, you know, most people think of when they think of narcissists, the one that goes around telling everybody how great they are, has no problem boasting about their accomplishments or thinking that they're the best one, and they tell everybody and everybody knows that that's what they think. And that's kind of your run-of-the-mill normal narcissist. And then there is what we call the malignant narcissist, which is kind of like the grandiose narcissist, but like on steroids. It's kind of like the Darth Vader of narcissists. You know, those are the ones that have a propensity for stalking or violence or threats of violence, things like that, to intimidate people into doing what they want. I mean, all narcissists have zero sense of self. They're like the Easter chocolate bunny that is totally hollow inside. That's what's going on with the narcissist. They have no inner sense of self. They have no inner self-esteem or self-worth. They actually are the most insecure of all people in the world. And so those of us who are empaths, they are attracted to narcissists, and narcissists are attracted to them. It's this crazy sort of symbiotic, very lethal attraction that both have for each other, because empaths naturally want to help people, and they see that narcissists have that inner sense of insecurity, that deep sense of insecurity. And narcissists naturally want to be with people that have qualities that they wish that they had, or that they want other people to think that they have, or that they admire in some way, something like that. And so they do gravitate toward each other. And with covert passive-aggressive narcissists, it's even worse, because covert passive-aggressive narcissists are actually the ones that will straight out tell you that they have difficulty with depression or feeling good about themselves. They'll straight up say that. They often appear to be victims of things. They want to appear to be victims. A lot of times they have a lot of illnesses, or they're sick, so that people feel sorry for them. You know, the world just isn't fair, doesn't give them what they want or whatever. But they also appear to be very charming, very nice, like the nicest people in the world. A really huge eye-opening book for me was this book right here by Debbie Mirza. It's called The Covert Passive-Aggressive Narcissist. And if you haven't had a chance to read it, I would definitely make sure to grab it. I will put a link to the book below here in my notes on the video. Definitely check it out. It was very eye-opening for me. And when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, these people that have been in my life, it could be a book written about them. Like they are it exactly. So I want to read for you, because I don't have the list memorized. So I just want to read for you some of the characteristics that that Debbie Mirza says that covert passive-aggressive narcissists have. They do not have a strong sense of self. They have silent rage, lying, hoovering, constant criticism, jealousy. They project their own issues onto you. Their words don't match their actions. They are emotionally disconnected. They have flying monkeys, it's like a triangulation move to try to get people in your world to line up against them or with them against you. and they get them to believe all their lies about how horrible you are. Or they might just get them on their side to think that they're a wonderful person. So therefore, if you cross this person, then there definitely must be something wrong with you because they're so nice. They take credit for your ideas. They withhold praise and recognition. They sabotage birthdays, holidays, vacations, and meaningful dates. They belittle you, teach you lessons. They're self-focused, emotionally immature, always strings attached, use people. They're dizzying conversationalists. So, easy to get sucked in. They create drama. They don't make love. They take it. They're not protective. They create stories in their head. They have no desire to actually know you. They have no interest in making this a great relationship. They use control and manipulation. So those are definitely all characteristics that I saw in the two covert passive-aggressive narcissists that I had to deal with in my life. I'm sure that I have others, but those are the two that actually became fixated with me and doing things, to hurt me. And what's interesting is that they have this kind of weird fixation, like they absolutely idolize you in a lot of ways, but then they also are trying to hurt you and do passive aggressive things to you. It's a very strange world of insanity that, you just got to get yourself out of as fast as possible if you can. And if you can't, you definitely want to create boundaries that are really, really strict because, these people are actually narcissists. All narcissists don't respect boundaries. You're supposed to respect theirs. They don't have to respect yours. That's how that goes. There are 3 phases to a relationship with a covert passive-aggressive narcissist or any narcissist. And that is the love bombing phase, where they start off with how great you are, you're so beautiful, everything is amazing. They line themselves up to look like they're so perfect for you. They want you to think that they're incredible in the beginning, that everything about them is just perfect, where you're thinking, wow, is this person even real? This is amazing. And then the next phase is where they start to devalue you. And with a passive aggressive narcissist, this is where you start to see these little things, and they're just small enough. They're so good at doing these little things that are not right and are meant to do something to you. But the rest of the world, if you tell them about it, they would go, well, that doesn't seem so bad. I don't know, maybe it was a mistake. That seems inadvertent, because they're so nice. So it has to be an error. Or they gaslight you. But it's in very, very subtle ways where they'll say, they'll do something completely contrary to what you agreed on or to what you would think that they should do or whatever. And when you call them out on it, they go, oh, we had that conversation. You agreed to that. And you never had that conversation. Or they say something like, I thought you said that was okay, or something like that. And that just never happened. And so they try to make you think that you're crazy. But when you tell other people about it, they go, oh, that must have been inadvertent. One of the things that I've seen with covert passive aggressive narcissists is like with money, where money will end up being deposited into the wrong account, and they go, oh, I didn't realize I did that, I'll correct it. And then they never do, and so then you end up having to go back to ask them about it. But then when you tell people about it, they go, well, it seems inadvertent, because the person is so nice and they're such a good person. They would never do anything like take money, things like that. And, so it goes on. And so during the devalue phase, you're getting this little drip, drip, drip on your head of things that are starting to make you think you're crazy, because the whole rest of the world does think that this person is so nice. One of the examples that Debbie Mirza gives in her book is about a husband
who would go into a Starbucks or something and get himself a coffee, and he would ask the wife if she wanted anything, and she would always say yes, and she would tell him what she wanted, and he would always come back out and say, "Oh, I forgot to get yours," when she would bring it up, and then he wouldn't even go back in to get it. Like, he would just drive away. Little things like that are just like, well, do you really break up a relationship over that? Well, it doesn't seem like so bad. Maybe I'm just being selfish, things like that. And especially if you're an empath, which I said they gravitate toward, you're going to want to be as giving as possible. And narcissists just want to take as much as possible. So, and remember, to a narcissist, your only value is whatever value you bring to them, because they need an endless amount of what we call narcissist supply. And supply is whatever thing of value you can bring to them. It might be compliments. It might be making them look good. It might be helping them, with all of their problems. It may be financial gain. It may be that just being associated with you gives them a higher boost in status or whatever. So, but if you take away that value from the narcissist, then your value is gone as well. And in fact, when you try to end a relationship with a narcissist whether it's a romantic relationship, a business relationship, or, friend, neighbor, employer, whatever, they're going to want to get you first, especially because you may know things about them that actually would make them vulnerable. So they're going to make a lot of noise and go absolutely berserk. So you got to be ready for that, because they're going to want to make everybody else think that you're the bad one for leaving. Even if they leave you, to be honest, they don't want to be seen as, oh, I left them because I'm a bad person, or I wanted to be with somebody else. They've got to make it about you. And so you've got to steel yourself. You got to be ready that whatever you say, do, whatever is going to be manipulated. They're going to lie, cheat. In my program on how to negotiate with a narcissist, I actually have a list of 30 things that they will do. And I actually break them out by the type of narcissist and the types of behavior they do in a breakup. But just know that you're going to be in for it. But remember that this is actually the most fragile personality. They're like the bully on the playground that when you fight back, they run away. So you just got to find that point and create enough strategy and leverage to get them to the point where they will be willing to back down and run away and just find somebody else, because it's not worth their trouble to be in your space anymore. And you're not giving them any value. So plus, if you're going to make them look bad, then, it's time to move on as far as they're concerned. So covert narcissists are so different than the grandiose narcissist. And covert can be malignant as well, by the way. But covert narcissists tend to be under the radar. To the rest of the world, they look amazing. They look perfect. They're wonderful. They're kind. They're generous. They're so easy to get along with. They only show their ugly, horrible, heinous face to their victims. And so here you are with somebody who, when you first meet them, is generous and kind and says all the right things, and everybody loves them. And oftentimes they're in positions of, where people love them, like clergy or doctors or psychologists, people who seem to be very caring, who seem to be just the most amazing people that you could have ever met. And so they come on with love bombing, just like all narcissists do. And if you want to know more about love bombing, check out my video on love bombing. But basically, it's that time where they are grooming you to become their target. They're testing you out to see if you're the right one for them, to see if if you're going to be good. And so they present themselves to you as wonderful. And if it's a romantic situation, they're the perfect spouse. If it's a business situation, they're the perfect business partner. So they get themselves ensconced into the relationship with you. And then once they're firmly in place, then they start with devaluing and they start saying little things. So the first way that covert narcissists attack their victims is through passive aggression. And what that is they seem like they're being very nice, but then they're also saying something that's not so nice. So they'll say something like, oh, you are doing so well with your weight loss. I mean, you still have a ways to go, but you're not looking as big as you normally do. Something like that. So it's sort of like a compliment, but also a devalue. It's also a put down. So you'll see these little kinds of things, like, oh, I see that you took care of the bank statements or balancing the checkbook or whatever it is. I just went ahead and fixed this mistake that you had. But good for you for doing that. That's really great. But, I just went ahead and fixed your mistake. Little things like that that are just kind of like this dig that are so like passive aggressive that you're not really sure what's going on. Another way that they can be passive aggressive is to say that they're going to do something and then not do it. And now you're left in this position of trying to go after them and go, hey, how come you didn't do the thing that you said that you were going to do? And they say, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. And then they never do it. And it's sort of like almost like a little rebellion against you. Like, I'm not going to do what you want me to do kind of a thing. So passive aggression is something you see a lot in covert narcissists because it's something that they can kind of do under the radar and people don't necessarily see it. It's not overt. It's not in your face. It also gives them the ability of plausible deniability where they can kind of go, well, I wasn't saying anything bad. I was complimenting them. What are you talking about? And so they don't seem like they're the bad ones. They're so excellent at passive aggression and it's just eats away at you. It's like little by little, you just get like little chunks taken out of you until you're just kind of like nothing left of you, or they just like suck a little blood at a time, or death by 1,000 cuts. I've heard all of those expressions before, and because the two narcissists that I had to deal with were both coverts, I understand it completely, and it is no fun to deal with that. So passive aggression is the first one. And by the way, if you want to know more about the covert passive aggressive narcissist, I do have a video on that, but I also highly recommend the book by Debbie Mirza called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist, and we'll drop a link to that below as well. If you've ever dealt with these energy vampires and you know exactly what I'm talking about, give me a vampires in the comments below. So the second thing that covert narcissists use to attack their victims is, their good old-fashioned favorites, gaslighting. All narcissists love gaslighting. And gaslighting is basically a way to try to make you think that you're crazy. And so they say things like, oh, we talked about that, when you know you didn't talk about that. Or you said you were going to do that and you know that you didn't. Or even if you see something that's evidence right in front of your face, like a text message that looks like they're being inappropriate with somebody else, they say, oh, you're just reading things into it. You're just imagining stuff. And I'm just friends with this person, or I work with this person. And why do you always have to be that way? So, gaslighting is a way to get control over their victims and start making victims almost question their own reality, question their own thinking, question their own self in a lot of ways. I mean, you just get to this point where you don't even know what's real anymore because they're just constantly gaslighting you into making you think that you're the one That's crazy. Another way that covert narcissists attack their victims is by isolating you. So making you put all your attention and focus on them, being jealous if you are talking to anybody else, making sure that everything that you do is about them. And even if you're trying to tell them something about you or how you're feeling, they'll interrupt you. They'll start saying how they're the victim, that, you know, whatever it is that you had a problem with it ends up getting shoved aside because they have to talk about their problem and what it is. And I can't believe you're attacking me. And especially because I'm depressed or I'm sick or this is all going on. And you know that this is going on with me. And so it's all, you know, shoved aside and isolating you from your friends and your family. And, you know, why you have to be talking to this person at this time, and this should be our time together, and who's calling you at this hour, and why are you leaving to go talk to somebody else or be with someone else, you know, and so you just end up with, you know, no family or friends because you've got to put 100% into this person. Another thing that covert narcissists do is stonewall. So they'll just not get back to you. They'll just basically kind of like ghost you and stop talking to you. And if you want to know more about ghosting, you should check out my video on ghosting. But, you know, they just go dark. It's sort of a form of passive aggression in a way, actually, where they just, you're trying to reach them and they don't respond to you. And then when you finally do get a hold of them, they're like, oh, I was busy, I was working, I was this, I was that. And you know that they could have at least sent you a text back to say, hey, I'm busy, I'll talk to you later, or something like that. But they want you to be worried. They love creating drama. They love creating like where you're scared about something, where you're intimidated. So that's definitely another way that covert narcissists attack their victims. But another of their main little ways is triangulation. So this is not a direct attack on you. So coverts kind of tend to hang back. They don't want to do the direct attack thing. They're sneakier. They kind of go around. They figure out ways to sort of attack you in very subtle ways. It's so much worse in some ways than somebody who comes right at you. So one of the things that they do is they triangulate. So they get all of their flying monkeys all lined up and believing that there's something wrong with you. And they do it and they couch it in ways like, oh, I'm just so concerned about how much she's drinking. You know, something like that. Like they care so much and I can't believe that they're doing that. Or, oh, it makes me so sad that she's, you know, talking to these other people or she's doing these things to me, so that they become like the victim, like that the other person is doing things to this person. And so that's another thing that they do. And they get all of their flying monkeys lined up to thinking that you are bad in some way. And the best flying monkeys, the ones that they love the most, are the ones that they think you want to have a relationship with, or you want to, you know, them to respect you or love you or like you or whatever. And so those are the ones, especially if they can spot weakness. If they're very, very good at manipulating. They are master manipulators. So they'll look for people who are going to be open to having this conversation with them and open to maybe hearing what they have to say. I know one of the covert narcissists that I had to deal with actually got my own cousin to come and talk to me about what a victim this other person was. And I just couldn't believe that this was actually happening. But that's how good they are. And I was since able to get my cousin to understand what was really going on. And, you know, that's not happening anymore. But that's something that covert narcissists do, is triangulate and line up their flying monkeys. And it is certainly something that they do during the discard phase of the relationship. And when you are ending a relationship and you're having to figure out how to end it, whether it's negotiating a divorce, negotiating a business settlement, any kind of negotiation, this is the kind of thing that they are going to be doing. As covert narcissists, they're going to attack you even more. It's everything that they were doing during the relationship will be magnified and on steroids over and over and over again.
All right, let's talk about this covert narcissist. This is the one that I really can't stand the most, just between you and me, because I had to deal with two of them who actually targeted me. It was horrible. I mean, horrible. I can't even describe how much it really sucked, frankly. And they weren't even people that I was romantically involved with. I mean, one of them was in my business life, and one of them, it was a family member, and it was just horrible. So this is the problem with these guys, okay? They seem really nice. To the rest of the world, these people are wonderful. They're amazing. People say they're so genuine. They're so kind. You know, they might even think that they're humble. These are the people that aren't like out there being brash and bragging and like what you think of with the normal garden variety narcissist, right? These are the people that are actually quite the opposite. Sometimes they can seem humble. Sometimes they present themselves as victims. I mean, they might even be sickly or something like that. Sometimes they even tell you straight out that they're depressed. They can sometimes claim to be very spiritual. They sometimes say, you know, that life hasn't given them, you know, a fair deal, a fair shake or whatever. But when you're around them, even though the rest of the world thinks that they're wonderful, there's just always something that's off. You can just tell that there's just something underneath the surface that's just not right. And you just kind of have a pit in your stomach, and these little things are happening. There's these little red flags, and they're not huge things. It's not like you get with like super toxic people. I mean, these are like little things that, you know, they don't seem that horrible, but then it becomes sort of what I call death by 1,000 cuts. And when they engage in behaviors against you, a lot of times there's what we call plausible deniability, whereas basically, like if they get caught doing something, there's a way to explain it away, and that explanation seems plausible. It doesn't seem right, but then you end up kind of like buying it sometimes because you're not really sure what to say. Or people in your world might say, oh, I don't think that they meant it that way. I mean, they're so nice. It must have been inadvertent. And, you know, they would never do anything that bad. I mean, they're certainly not malicious. And so when I was dealing with the two that I had to deal with, there were so many signs. I had to deal with them in these relationships. And by the way, if you want to know more about specifically covert narcissism in relationships, definitely check out my video on that topic. But anyway, there's so many traits really in a lot of ways, but in my experience, the ones that I had to deal with, here are my top 10, the ones that really stood out to me the most. Number one is a very fragile sense of self. I mean, these are the people, they just feel hollow inside when you're around them. It seems like there's a vacancy. There's something that's not quite right, not quite there. Or they're sort of like chameleons, whoever they're around, that's who they kind of take on that personality of that person. So that's number one. Number two is they're extremely jealous. And you'll find that, you know, that they'll be jealous of other people. Who is that person to have what they have? Or they covet what other people have. They're often very competitive. That was my experience with the two narcissists I had to deal with. I felt like they were constantly trying to one-up me or somehow show that they were better than me in some way, or I just felt like there was this constant competition which when I'm with my real friends and my real people and the other people in my life, I never have that feeling. Like we're just supporting each other. It's good. We're having a conversation. But there's this undertone of something going on with the covert narcissist. Number 3 is this underhanded criticism. And they're really good at it. To be honest with you, I'm not good at this kind of stuff, but they're really good at it. So there's sort of like this, they have this way of sort of like working their statement in with their criticism. So it's like, oh, I saw that you handled this. That was great that you handled that. But I noticed that you forgot to do this. I took care of it for you, like little like cut there, and you're sort of like, what, where did that come from? Right. So underhanded criticism is number 3. Number 4 is triangulation, those flying monkeys. Covert narcissists love them some flying monkeys. Yeah, they love the flying monkeys. They love to get other people involved, to make sure that that the world thinks that they're wonderful. And so if you think there's anything wrong with them, then it's definitely your problem. Or they're either against you, for them. They want you to feel isolated. It's a bullying tactic. It's a weakening tactic. They're trying to destabilize you. They're trying to show you that, that they've got more power than you. And remember that narcissists never attach themselves to people who don't have value. No. There's no narcissistic supply if you don't have value. They attach themselves to you because you have so much value. That's the crazy head game of this whole thing, okay? So triangulation is definitely one of the things that I saw regularly. Number 5 is, I can barely even say this because this is so painful, which is take credit for your ideas. They love to take credit for your ideas. They love to watch you do everything. You end up doing everything, then they take credit for the ideas. But they'll step up if people are watching. So if they lay back and let you do everything unless somebody's watching, then they'll step up and make sure it looks like they're doing something. And one of the things in this kind of taking credit thing that is sort of kind of related is that they constantly are staring at you and studying you because they're trying to figure out how to sort of almost like be you. There's this weird adulation thing going on with them as well while they're devaluing you. And if you want to know more about why narcissists stare at you, definitely check out my video on that. It's so creepy and weird. The next thing is that they withhold. They'll withhold information. They'll withhold compliments. They'll withhold praise. They'll withhold anything that could potentially give you something that they're now not going to have, or they can't really share. I mean, their scarcity mentality at its like most extreme. So even if they give you the information to have something else that they have, like, the same bed sheets that they have or something, and now you're going to be on an equal footing, they cannot do that. So they withhold information, they withhold praise, they can't have you be equal to or potentially better than them. So they withhold. Next thing is creating drama. Oh, I mean, they create drama in so many different ways. By roping people in, like, we talked about the flying monkeys. They also like to drop little bits of gossip to people, which will maybe pit people against each other or pit people against you, something like that. And sometimes the really good ones are really good at packaging up these little bits of gossip to make it look like care or concern. So concerned about her, she had really too much to drink at the party last night. I wonder what's going on with that, something like that. Or they present as the victim. I just don't know why she won't talk to me anymore. I was so good to her. I can't believe that this is happening after I did so much for them. Something like that. They're presenting as the victim to try to get flying monkeys to think that, you know, you did something to them in some way. Okay. And the next one is, oh, this is one of their faves. They love, covert narcs love to be passive aggressive. One of their absolute go-to in their bag of tricks, they will do things that they said that they didn't. They will not do things that they say they're going to do, and then you have to like kind of like follow up with them and find out what's going on with that. And then, they might even try to gaslight you. Oh, we never had that conversation, or you never said that. And then if you try to call them out, or you actually do catch them, then they suddenly become the victim. Oh, my life is a mess, and oh, I can't believe you're saying this to me, and I've been so wonderful, or something like that. So that's another way of being passive aggressive. Another way is, what we talked about earlier, that underhanded criticism, that those backhanded compliments, or a refusal to communicate at all. That's another way of being passive aggressive. So I want to know if any of you have seen any of these things in your relationships. And if you have, give me a totally in the comments below. All right. So the next one is not being protective. They definitely do not have your back. If something happens to you, sometimes they might even take the other person's side, and you're kind of wondering why they're taking the other person's side. And they'll say, oh, no, I'm not taking their side, and, whatever. But you just feel like they don't have your back. And the last one is hoovering. And this is definitely something that I experienced with the 2 covert narcs I had to deal with as well. You feel like they're withdrawing from you. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so once you start to go, you know what? I'm out of here. I'm tired of being treated this way. I'm tired of doing everything. I'm tired of all these red flags. I'm tired of the death by 1,000 cuts. Blah, blah, blah. I'm out of here. They start to feel you walking or leaving or pulling back in some way. Then all of a sudden they'll rush in and do the things that they were supposed to do in the first place, which actually makes it worse, because now you're like, oh, so you did know what you were supposed to be doing, but you just didn't. But they're very careful then to only do just as much as they need to, or hoover or love bomb, or, whatever they need to do to get you off of your, idea that that their supply is going to walk out the door. And then they'll go back to their ways, so they just do the bare minimum, but they do hoover to come back and try to get you to, forget about whatever it is that you were going to do, leave or call them out or whatever. So, but again, it's like just the bare minimum, just enough to get you back where they want you to be. Okay, so let's talk covert narcissists. What's the difference between them and a regular narcissist? So they are every bit 100% narcissists. They are the same fragile little ego inside, the same super insecure person that's deep inside there, but they look a little bit different because they're not in your face the way regular overt narcissists are. They come across as a little bit more passive, a little bit more quiet, so that on the surface, you don't actually even notice that they're narcissists at all in the beginning. As a typical narcissist, you think is a person who is telling everybody how great they are all the time. The covert narcissist does not do that. However, because they don't do that, and because you can't see it right off the bat on the surface, they're actually way more insidious and way more toxic than overt narcissists are. Okay, so another trait of a covert narcissist is that they come across as shy and actually even reserved. They actually probably are prone to bouts of depression. They may even tell you that they have bouts of depression. So, on the surface, they're going to seem to be like, maybe they're just nice people. Maybe they might just, be more fragile, something like that, because being a victim is very much part of the covert narcissist plan to get people into their lair. Okay, the third thing that you'll see with covert narcissists is they seem to be helpful in the beginning. So they'll actually lure you in with things that they know that you want, so that they can appear to be super helpful, but they really just want to use you. So once you're into their lair, then they start with the passive aggressive. They start to drip on you like the Chinese water torture. I'm half Chinese, I could say that. On your forehead, kind of a thing, like, and you start to think, am I crazy? Because the rest of the world sees this person as being so nice, but you kind of know that something is not right. They're doing all these little things behind your back, and they're very, very good at disguising it in such a way that if you tell somebody about it, the person's going to go, well, that doesn't sound so bad. But that it's like this drip, drip, drip thing that they're doing to try to make you crazy. They lure you in with, I'm going to help you with this. And then they start with passive aggressive little things to try to make you crazy. Okay, and the next trait of a covert narcissist is that they often like to play the victim, or maybe they're very sickly, or they often have health issues or something like that, because they constantly need to be the center of attention. So they come up with ways that they can constantly be the center of attention. And then the last thing is that they will not have any sense of empathy for another person. They can feign empathy, but and they know when they have to apologize, just to apologize for the surface, but they really don't actually have any empathy for the other person, because they actually are narcissists, and narcissists don't feel anything for anybody but themselves. If this is sounding all too familiar, give me a for sure in the comments. Okay, so this is all well and good, but if you have a covert narcissist in your life, what can you do about it? So the first thing that you can do about it is not to react, especially if you know that this covert narcissist is trying to get under your skin or trying to manipulate you in some way, or they're saying something to try to get a rise out of you. You just say, good for you, or that's great. Don't react, because that's exactly what they want you to do. The second thing that you could do is, if the timing seems right, call them out on their behavior, but do it in a very subtle way. You sort of play their game. Oh, I'm surprised to see that you're here today. You said you were sick yesterday. Something like that. But you say it without emotion. You don't say it with smugness. You just say it so that they subtly know that you're calling them out on their behavior, but you are not bothered by it. They're not getting a rise out of you. You're just noticing it. So the third thing that you can do is do not, and I repeat, do not let them know that they are getting to you. You do not show any emotion. You do not show that anything that they're doing has manipulated you in any way, because that is exactly what they want. And if they get that, then they're going to do more of it. So this is a subtle way to start shutting down this behavior. It's kind of like a behavior modification program for narcissists. You don't give them what they want. So don't react, because if you do, then that's what they want. Okay, the fourth thing that you can do is kind of similar to the others, but this is specific to gaslighting, because this is something that narcissists will do often, and especially covert narcissists too. They're going to try to gaslight you. So they try to make you think that you're crazy. So years ago, there was a movie, I think it was actually called Gaslight or something. And this husband was actually abusing the wife through trying to make her seem like she was crazy. And he would blow out these gas lights. And then she would say, wasn't that just lit? And he would say, no, it wasn't. And that's what gaslighting is. It's just like the subtle little thing to try to make you think that you're crazy. So basically it's like, we talked about that. you said that it was okay. Oh, we had a conversation. I'm sorry, there was a misunderstanding on your part, and you know that there was no misunderstanding, or maybe that there was no conversation ever at all. So don't let them gaslight you that way. Just say, no, there was never that conversation. No, we didn't have that conversation. Or no, there was no misunderstanding. This is what we talked about. Something like that. Remain firm. Don't allow them to manipulate you into thinking that you're crazy. Okay, number 5 is keep your barriers really strong. One of the things that narcissists do, because they've got this mantra that I will not be ignored, is they don't respect boundaries. So they'll come right into your room, they'll read your mail, they will go places that they're not supposed to be or whatever, and they act like, oh, here I am bringing you something nice, or I'm doing something nice for you. So, I'm not respecting your boundaries, but you're going to forgive me because I'm being nice about it, something like that. Don't allow them to not respect your boundaries. Have super strong barriers, super strong barriers. That's the only way you're going to be able to manage their behavior and also keep your own sanity. And the other thing that you can do is to slowly close down the barriers of communication. And what I mean by this is, if you have a narcissist in your life or a covert narcissist, if the most thing that you can do for yourself is get them out of your life. Okay. I've recently had to do that with people in my business arena. And because, I've had some covert narcissists in my life in the business arena, and I've had to deal with that. And it was extremely difficult, and it's painful because, it's sort of a betrayal in a lot of ways, right? But, you just have to understand and have compassion for the fact that they're broken people, and that they have deep, deep insecurities and problems, but that doesn't mean they have to be in your space. So if I were you, I would try to slowly shut down those barriers of communication and slowly start to wean them out of your space if you can. They are, unfortunately, so easy for me to come up with great examples. It's like I can come up with these so easily because the examples are hypothetical, of course. So anyway, I'm giving you 5 ways to expose a covert narcissist. So number one is they are inherently lazy. So they want to feed off of you. This, again, very hypothetical. So the number one idea is to give them deadlines. Give them deadlines and then hold them to them. Because they are inherently lazy, they will not want to do that. And I've coached a couple of people who've had covert narcissist business partners, and it's really interesting how they all have the same playbook. They kind of think that they're just going to attach themselves to people who actually work hard and have talent, and they think, oh, well, this person will make me look good, and this person will actually do all the work, and I'll just let them do it all. They initially do stuff. They initially make it look like there's a flurry of activity going on, but then they kind of just hang back and they don't really do that much. So the way to expose them is just, you start to have to give them deadlines. You start to have to kind of make them do stuff, and you actually have to hold them to it and say, hey, where's your, whatever it is that you gave them deadlines on. It's a little bit tiresome, frankly, after a while. So I don't recommend, if you kind of know that you are dealing with a covert narcissist, I wouldn't recommend getting into either a relationship or a business partnership with this person. I would recommend staying the hell away from them. But if you end up stuck with them and you're trying to get out of it, which I do recommend that you do, part of the way that you can start to expose them is give them deadlines. So that's number one. Number two, they also don't generally have their own ideas. So you can try to make them come up with their own ideas, and then also give them a deadline for that. And if you really want to expose them, I know it sounds mean, But, we're talking about exposing them here. So another way that you can expose them with making them come up with their own ideas is have them do it in a group setting. So have them come up with their own ideas and then make them present their own ideas in a group setting. See what they come up with on their own. That's number 2. Number 3 is, if you suspect that you were dealing with a potential covert narcissist, I would definitely trust your gut. And hey, I'm not bitter. It's just that I tend to be overly generous. And I just actually had a whole conversation with a woman who has been my business coach and one of my dearest friends for a really long time. And, she actually said, you tend to be overly generous to a fault. And then, tend to be taken advantage of. So I'm working on that. And just finding the people and attracting people into my life that are worth being generous to. They exist in the world, and I am attracting them into my life now. So anyway, when you suspect you are dealing with a covert narcissist or any potential narcissist, this is number 3, by the way, please trust your gut. Do not give them access to things. Do not give them access to your passwords. Do not give them your logins. This is number 3, and much more on this in my video. And it's called This is the Only Way to Get a Narcissist to Respect You. It's a really good video. Definitely check that out. Number 4 is, well, they are hypocrites. So they will say one thing, they will do something else. Their words will not match their behavior. That will happen a lot. So you can definitely call them out on that, such as, they'll say that they were a victim of someone, and then they'll say they don't like that person, and then the next thing you know, they'll be hanging out with that person. So you can say, oh, I thought you didn't like that person. I thought you didn't want to spend time with them. Ask them why they want to spend time with them if they don't like them, something like that. Or they might say that they were sick. And then all of a sudden they are wanting to go to an event that, is like really prestigious because they'll really look good if they end up going to it. That sort of thing. Like, you can definitely call them out on their behavior because they're very much hypocrites. So it'll be very easy to find opportunities to do that for sure. And if you want to call them out, give me a call them out in the comments below. And the last one is, oh, definitely, I got caught with this. You don't want to do the same. Make sure you follow up every single convo with a confirmatory email or text. Because guess what? They will definitely gaslight you. You know how those covert narcs are. They love them some gaslighting. It's definitely one of their favorite little things. And so they will try to manipulate your conversations. We talked about that. You don't remember? Oh, yes, you agreed to that. And you didn't agree to that. But they'll say that you did. And they try to make you think you're crazy. It's a way to weaken you. It's a way to destabilize you. They do that. And, I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday who was like, been gaslit so often, very intelligent woman. She was like, she didn't even remember for sure if she had signed like a huge check a few years ago, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. She was like going to go hire a handwriting expert to see if she had actually signed a check. And I was like, no, you're not going to hire a handwriting expert. You're going to say, I did not sign that check. I don't remember signing it. Therefore, I did not sign it. So, but they gaslight you so much, like you start to question your own mind, right? So make sure you follow up every single conversation, like in real time, right away, with a text or an email. Hello, we just met and we had this conversation and this is what we talked about. Just confirming. Thank you. Have a nice day. That will help you and it will help them and hopefully be continuing to move smoothly in the world. So anyway, those are 5 ways to expose a covert narcissist.